Hi kids! My name is Eleanor and this is Joss. Joss is going to do some drawing for us today. Have you ever wondered why we call today Good Friday? Do you think it might be because we get to eat yummy, yummy hot cross buns? Oh, yum! Do you think it's because today we don't have to do any school or on Monday? Do you think it's because we know when it's Good Friday, the holidays are here? Yeah. I mean, surely it can't be because of what happened on the very first Good Friday, can it? You see, the very first Good Friday happened almost 2,000 years ago in a place called Jerusalem. See, 2,000 years ago, a man named Jesus had been traveling around Galilee and Judea, and he'd been doing some amazing things. Things like making a blind man see again, making a man who couldn't walk again. This one time, he was on a boat and there was this huge storm, and him and all his friends were going to be thrown out of the boat until Jesus said, "Stop!" And it did. And this other time, Jesus made a man who had died come back to life again. What? Well, you'd think after all these things, Jesus would be a pretty popular guy. And he was, for a little bit. That was until the Jewish leaders became so angry and jealous of Jesus that they decided they wanted him to die. And then they got a big, angry crowd to join them. And Jesus was sentenced to die, even though he'd never done anything wrong, ever. That doesn't sound like a very good Friday, does it? Sounds like a pretty bad Friday. And it was a pretty bad Friday. It was probably the saddest Friday that there's ever been. But it was also the best Friday that has ever been. But let me tell you why. See, it all has to do with what happened when Jesus was dying on the cross. I'm going to read it from the Bible, and you can read along with me if you've got a Bible at home too. I'm going to be reading from Luke chapter 23, starting at verse 42. See, when Jesus was dying on the cross, he wasn't the only one nailed to a cross. There were two other criminals there with him, people who'd done so very bad things. And this is what one of the criminals said to Jesus. He said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Then Jesus said to him, "Listen, what I say is true. Today you will be with me in paradise." What? A man who was a criminal, who was dying on a cross, could be with Jesus in heaven when he died? But how is that possible? How could that be? Well, what happens next will tell us why. We're going to keep reading. It says, "It was about noon, and the whole land became dark until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There was no sun. The curtain in the temple was torn into 2 pieces." Now, you might be thinking, what does a big curtain being torn in two have to do with a bad man going to heaven and a Friday being called good? Well, you see, the big curtain in the temple that was ripped in two when Jesus died, well, that curtain was like a big keep out sign. It was a sign that said people and God couldn't be friends. You see, people were so full of sin. They said no to God, no to being his friend, and no to living God's way. And that meant that they couldn't be friends with God. They couldn't live with God. But when Jesus died on the cross that Friday 2,000 years ago, he took the punishment for all of those times people say no to God. And when he did that, that big keep out sign? Well, God tore it up. People didn't have to keep out anymore. People could be friends with God. People like you, people like me, people like the bad man on the cross could be friends with God. And just like the man on the cross, you and I can be with Jesus in heaven, in paradise. You see, kids, it's all because of what happened on that very first Good Friday. Sounds pretty good to me, don't you think? Maybe we should even call it Great Friday. See you later.